For most of his life, Daniel Mercer believed love was something that happened to other people. He was not ugly, not cruel, not boring. He had a quiet face, kind eyes, and the kind of voice people trusted. At 37, he owned a small repair shop in a rainy town near the coast, where he fixed clocks, radios, lamps, and anything else people were too sentimental to throw away. That was the strange thing about Daniel. He could repair almost anything except his own life. Every evening, after closing the shop, he walked home past houses with glowing windows. Sometimes he saw families eating dinner. Sometimes he saw couples standing in kitchens, arguing or laughing or simply moving around each other like they belonged to the same world. Daniel always looked away before it hurt too much. His apartment was above the shop. It was clean, warm, and painfully quiet. One cup beside the sink, one chair by the window, one side of the bed that never changed shape. He had loved once many years before. Her name was Anna. They met when Daniel was 25 and still believed that time was endless. She came into his shop with a broken music box that had belonged to her grandmother. Daniel repaired it in 2 days but waited a week to call her, because he wanted an excuse to hear her voice again. Anna had sunlight in her. That was how Daniel remembered her. She talked with her hands. She laughed at small things. She believed every old object had a soul, and maybe that was why she liked Daniel. He was quiet, careful, and already a little old inside. For 2 years, Anna filled his life with noise. She left books on his table, flowers in jars, notes in his coat pockets. She made his apartment feel less like a room and more like a beginning. Then she was offered a job in another city. "Come with me," she said. Daniel wanted to say yes. He wanted to be brave. But fear rose in him like cold water. What if they moved and failed? What if she stopped loving him? What if he gave up everything and ended up with nothing? So he said, "I need more time." Anna cried, but she nodded. A month later, she left. They promised to call. They promised nothing would change. Everything changed. By winter, she was gone from his life. After Anna, Daniel dated women who were kind, smart, and good to him. But every time love came close, he stepped back. He called it caution. He called it bad timing. He called it not feeling right. The truth was simpler. Daniel was afraid of needing someone. Years passed. His friends married. Their children grew. His mother stopped asking if he had met anyone and started asking if he was eating enough. Then one October evening, an old woman named Mrs. Bell brought him a clock. It was a small wooden clock with a cracked face and silent hands. Daniel examined it and said, "I can try, but I can't promise it will work again." Mrs. Bell smiled sadly. "That's what my husband said about us once." Daniel looked up. She told him her husband had died the year before. They had been married 46 years. "We were not always happy," she said, "but we kept coming back to each other. People think love is finding the right person. Sometimes love is refusing to throw away what still has life in it. After she left, Daniel sat alone in the shop with the broken clock in his hands. For some reason, he thought of Anna, not as the girl he lost, but as the girl who had once asked him to choose a life with her. That night, Daniel searched for her online. He found a photo. Anna was married now, standing beside a man and a little boy with her same bright smile. Daniel stared at the picture for a long time. He expected jealousy. Instead, he felt grief. Not because Anna had moved on, because he had not. He had built an entire life around the fear of losing love, and in doing so, had lost it again and again before it could even begin. The next morning, Daniel opened the shop early. Rain tapped against the windows. The broken clock sat on the table, waiting. At 9:17, the bell above the door rang. A woman stepped inside, shaking rain from a dark blue umbrella. She was not young, not old, maybe mid-30s. Her hair was pinned loosely, her coat was wet at the shoulders, and in her hands she carried a cracked wooden frame. "I was told you fix things," she said. Daniel looked at the frame, then at her. "I try," he answered. She smiled. "My name is Clara." And Daniel, though he did not know it yet, had just been given another chance. Clara Whitmore came back to Daniel's shop 3 times that week. The first time she brought the frame. The second time she brought an old lamp. The third time she brought nothing at all. "I was nearby," she said. Daniel glanced out the window. The street was empty, and her coat was dry. She was not nearby by accident. He did not say that. Instead, he made coffee. Clara was a school librarian. She had a soft voice, but there was strength beneath it, like a door that had survived many storms. She loved old houses, sad songs, and books with handwritten notes in the margins. She had moved to town 6 months earlier after leaving a life she described only as too small to breathe in. Daniel did not ask too many questions. He knew what it meant to have rooms inside you that were not ready for visitors. They became friends slowly. Clara stopped by after work. Sometimes she sat in the corner chair and read while Daniel repaired clocks. Sometimes they talked until the sky outside turned black. She told him stories about children at the library who asked impossible questions. He told her about the people who brought broken things to him because they could not bear to lose one more piece of the past. One evening, Clara asked, "Do you ever get tired of fixing what other people broke?" Daniel thought about it. "No," he said. "It makes me feel useful." "And what about you? What about me? Who fixes you?" He almost laughed, but the question stayed in the air. "Nobody," he said. Clara looked at him gently. "That must be exhausting." Daniel wanted to change the subject. Instead, for reasons he did not understand, he told her about Anna. Not everything, just enough. The music box, the job in another city, the fear, the words he wished he could take back. Clara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, Maybe you didn't lose her because you didn't love her. Maybe you lost her because you didn't trust love to survive being real. Daniel looked down at his hands. No one had ever said it like that. Winter arrived early that year. The town became silver with rain and fog. Clara and Daniel fell into a rhythm that felt dangerous because it felt natural. She brought him soup when he forgot to eat. He walked her home when the streets flooded. She laughed at his dry jokes. He learned that she took tea with honey, hated carnations, and touched the edge of her sleeve when she was nervous. Daniel started waiting for her. That frightened him. One night, after closing the shop, they stood beneath the awning while rain poured over the street. Clara's shoulder brushed his. Neither moved away. "Daniel," she said quietly, "are you lonely?" He could have lied. "Yes, so am I." The honesty of it hurt. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and felt the old fear wake inside him. It whispered the same things it always had. "You will ruin this. She will leave. You are safer alone." Clara seemed to see the battle on his face. "I'm not asking you for a promise," she said. "I'm asking you not to disappear." He wanted to say he wouldn't, but promises had always felt like locked doors to Daniel. So he said nothing. For the next few days he became careful. Too careful. He replied to her messages later. He stayed busy when she stopped by. He told himself he was protecting them both from disappointment. But really, he was doing what he had done his whole life, leaving first without moving his feet. On Friday, Clara came to collect the repaired frame. Daniel wrapped it in brown paper and handed it to her. She did not take it right away. "You're doing it, aren't you?" she asked. "Doing what?" "Turning me into a memory before I've even had a chance to be part of your life." The words struck him harder than anger would have. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. Clara's eyes softened, but her voice did not. "Neither do I. My marriage ended because I kept making myself smaller for someone who never noticed. I am not asking for perfect love, Daniel, but I will not beg a man to stay in a room he keeps looking for exits from." She took the frame. At the door, she turned back. "You fix clocks, so you know better than anyone that time moves whether we are brave or not." Then she left. Daniel stood in the quiet shop, listening to the rain. For the first time, the silence did not feel safe. Felt like a warning. Clara did not come back the next day, or the day after that. Daniel tried to work, but every clock in the shop seemed louder than before. Their ticking filled the room like 100 small accusations. Time moves whether we are brave or not. On the third evening, Mrs. Bell returned for her repaired clock. Daniel had fixed the gears, polished the wood, and replaced the cracked glass. When he wound it, the hands began to move again. Mrs. Bell listened to the ticking and smiled. "My husband bought this for me after our worst fight," she said. "He was terrible with apologies, so he brought me a clock instead. I told him it was a stupid gift." Daniel smiled faintly. "Was it?" "No. It meant he wanted more time. After she left, Daniel locked the shop and sat in the dark. More time. That was what he had always asked for. More time to decide. More time to be sure. More time to become someone who was not afraid. But time had never made him braver. It had only made him older. He went upstairs and opened a drawer he had not touched in years. Inside was a small photograph of Anna, a postcard she once sent him, and the receipt from the music box repair. He had kept them like proof of loss. For the first time, he understood they were not proof that love had failed him. They were proof that he had once been loved, and that love had asked something of him. Daniel took the photograph and placed it in a box. Not to forget Anna, but to stop living beside a ghost. Then he put on his coat and walked to Clara's apartment. The rain had stopped, but the streets shone under the lamps. His heart beat so hard he almost turned back twice. When Clara opened the door, she looked surprised, then guarded. Daniel did not step inside. "I'm scared," he said. Clara was silent. "I know that is not romantic. I know it is not enough. But it is the truth. I was scared with Anna, and I called it timing. I was scared after her, and I called it caution. Then I met you, and I started doing the same thing again." His voice shook. "I don't want to make you pay for fear that began long before you." Clara's face changed, but she still said nothing. Daniel continued, "I can't promise I'll never panic. I can't promise I'll always know how to stay. But I can promise I will tell you when I'm afraid instead of disappearing. And if I look for an exit, I will stop long enough to ask myself if I truly want to leave." For a long moment, the hallway was quiet. Then Clara said, "I don't need a perfect man, Daniel. I'm not one. I know." That almost made him laugh. She stepped back and opened the door wider. "But I do need an honest one." Daniel nodded. "I can try." "No," Clara said gently. "Try is what people say when they are already halfway gone." He swallowed. She was right. So he breathed in and said, "I will." That was how their love began. Not with certainty, not with grand speeches under moonlight. It began with a frightened man standing in a hallway, choosing not to run. The months that followed were not always easy. Daniel still had days when silence called to him like an old habit. Clara still had moments when she expected love to shrink her. They argued. They misunderstood each other. Sometimes they sat in different rooms until one of them found the courage to cross the hallway. But they crossed it, again and again. Spring came slowly. Clara's books appeared on Daniel's shelves. Her blue umbrella leaned by his door. 2 cups sat beside the sink. The apartment above the shop no longer sounded empty in the evenings. One Sunday, Daniel found Clara in the shop, standing before Mrs. Bell's old clock. "It's beautiful," she said. Daniel listened to the steady ticking. "It was broken for a long time." Clara smiled. "But not forever." He looked at her then and understood something he had spent half his life avoiding. Love was not the absence of fear. Love was the hand you reached for while fear was still in the room. Years later, Daniel would not tell people that Clara saved him. That would not be true. She did not rescue him from loneliness like a hero in a story. She simply stood at the door of his life and waited to see whether he would open it. This time Daniel did, and every evening after that, when he walked home past glowing windows, he no longer looked away, because one of those windows was his, and behind it someone was waiting,